Hello everybody and welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is the 1st of April 2022, commonly referred to as April Fool's Day here in America. People like to play pranks on one another, and that's to be expected today, so be aware of that. If you're not from America, you're not familiar with the tradition, watch for unbelievable stories coming up from companies today that are in the spirit of April Fool's Day. I am not participating this year in April Fool's Day because I've got too much work to do, but there's a YouTube channel I really enjoy watching called You Suck at Cooking. And they just did a review of a new M.1 MacBook Pro, which underscores a lot of things that I try to bring awareness to regarding how PC performance is often misunderstood and misvalued by the vast majority of the public, at least on social media, from the perspective that I see. People emphasize importance on things that don't actually make them faster typers. They don't make them better gamers. And the tongue-in-cheek review from You Suck at Cooking is something I would have loved to have done myself. The misinterpretation of performance is well underscored in their April Fool's Day video, where instead of doing cooking videos, they're doing a hardware review, which they don't do. It's sort of like me doing a cooking video. So absolute applause and well done for the sarcastic teasing of the masses that misunderstand and misvalue the marketing and the stuff social media influencers will often emphasize. It's really just nonsense. And he does it in a way where it's very, very sarcastic. I really like it a lot. The link, if you want to watch his video, is down in the video notes below this video. It is hilarious. I think it's only like 7 minutes long, but if it looks familiar to you or sounds familiar to you, because it's pretty much putting into visuals a lot of stuff I've been trying to raise awareness of over the years. So I hope you check it out, and it's just done in the spirit of April Fool's Day, but at the same time, he makes a really valid point about perception. All right, so today I'm doing something a little different, which is a review. And I'll talk about this here in a minute. First, a bunch of thank yous out to Peter Laycock for a super contribution earlier today, Tony Wallow for, again, another super contribution, and Kelly Stewart. Thank you guys so much. And we had a couple of contributions just before the show started here in Super Chat. So one from, well, another one from Peter Laycock. As always, thank you so much, Peter, watching us from Bonnie, Scotland. And to Bob Connors, thank you for your continuous support, my friend, and a contribution yesterday as well. And then also from Madi Yoel, a great friend of the channel here, contributes $20 in Super Chat. And there's Rick Lakes with a $10 contribution and says, hello, Carey and chat. Hello to Rick Lakes, and thank you so much, Rick and Madi, Bob Connors, and of course, Peter Laycock. You guys, and the aforementioned Kelly Stewart, and Tony Wello. You guys are make such a difference in the channel. I wish I could find the words for it, but I'm able to do stuff on the channel. Excuse me, on this channel that cost a lot of money. If I want to be an independent reviewer, you don't see many items being provided by manufacturers to me. I don't really have a very diverse group of manufacturers that I work with. I work a lot with the folks at Be Quiet, and just to be clear, Be Quiet has never paid me. They've sent me product, and I review it on my timeline, and they do not have any hand in the review. They don't. Sometimes when you, if you're an influencer and you're getting paid to make a video, one of the conditions is that you show the video to the person or the company paying you for their approval before it airs, or that if you air it without their approval, that you will take it down and fix it within a certain period of time, or you're not going to get paid. A lot of times they hold payment. If you get a partial payment to get you started, and then they want control of the narrative. And I don't sign deals like that. Unless it's something very obvious, like, you know, if you're going to show our product, you're not going to show a competing product at the same time. Just common sense, courtesy, and respect. Stuff like that I don't have a problem with, because I wouldn't do that. But this company reached out to me called OuvisliteDirect, something along those lines. And it's a very unusual product in that I can't find any manufacturer markings on it. And even the owner's manual says, you know, thanks for selecting our brand. It's almost as though there's a marketplace or a business model that exists in China where you can buy product that you simply put your name on. I don't know for a fact that's what's happening here, but in America, it's all about branding. Finding this manufacturer was quite difficult. I was trying to get this video set up for today, and I had to dig through hundreds of emails because I didn't even know what to search for. The name Ouvislite is never used. The company doesn't sign the emails other than with like a first name. And it's very vague. It's very interesting. But they did send me the product to review it. They're not paying me to review it. But I said, yeah, sure, if you want to send it to me, I'll take a look at it as time permits. And, well, time has permitted. The only other company that you'll see regularly here that sends me product, but again, has never paid me, is Silverstone. So Be Quiet and Silverstone have been great friends of the channel in that way. And I am always honest with my reviews over things I like and things I don't like. We've been about 50-50 with both of these companies with their products, and yet in the spirit of the review, they're not punishing me for, you know, speaking my honest opinion of reviewing their products, and continue to send me more products. And in fact, I think they have learned from what to expect from me. I'm pretty consistent on what I'm looking for, that they're intentionally not sending me some products, I imagine, because they know I'm not going to like it. And I'm okay with that, because I'd rather, you know, be making videos about the positive, you know, unless there's a company doing harm, financial harm or deception, in which case, you know, I want to highlight that. But that's not the case with these manufacturers. And I'm looking forward to working with them more throughout this year and the following years. So, but for everything else, I go online and buy stuff the same as you do. I have the same experience you guys would have, in theory. I don't get any special favors. And right now, there's a bunch of 3070 Ti graphics cards on sale from Best Buy, Newegg, even Amazon. From EVGA and Gigabyte, they're all at $749.99. What's remarkable, first of all, is that the cards are available to add to your cart. And the other thing that's remarkable is these cards, manufacturer's suggested retail price is $9.99. Is it $9.99? $8.99. So it's $150 off the manufacturer's suggested retail price. And these cards, these video cards, they have back plates, they have RGB. These are the TI version of the 3070. I also saw Amazon has the Xbox Series X, the $500 1 terabyte version for members only at $499 in stock now. So if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can order an Xbox Series X off Amazon today. If you're not a Prime member, I don't think it's available to you. But that's nice to see it selling at MSRP. So that's a good sign of things to come, I hope. As I mentioned the other day, I think we're sort of on the tail end of the high car prices and the high house prices. I think we're in for a ride still on food and gasoline, but the video card shortage, the home shortage, and the car shortage, I think we're on the tail end of that. So let's hope I'm right. Let's talk about what this machine is. Let's unbox it live, see what we get in the box, see how they pack it. This is my first experience with it, apart from taking the manual out and looking at it. Well, the manual's in several languages, so don't worry about how thick it is because it's nowhere. I think there's 6 languages on this. English, Dutch, French, Italian, Spanish, Netherlands, I think Polski, Swedish, and Japanese. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 1/9 of this manual is only applicable. In the box, we can see we've got this Nook-like unit. You know, the Intel Next Unit of Computing inspired a new form factor for PCs. And, you know, Gigabyte had the Brix, B-R-I-X. And there's been other manufacturers that have come out with competing models. And that's effectively what I believe we have here. Now, this is an older generation. I believe this is an 8th generation Intel chip. And we'll talk a little bit about why machines like this exist, who they're designed for, and why you wouldn't take a small machine and torture it with a heat test. That's not what they're designed for. And you can absolutely make them overheat very easily because you're using it in a way that it wasn't intended to be used. In this box, we've got what appears to be a HDMI cable. So you can hook this up to your TV or monitor. We have a Mickey Mouse style power cord, just like the Nook. We have an internal SATA connector, I guess if you want to add another drive. We have what appears to be a VESA mount, so you can mount this behind your monitor so it has a 0 footprint on your desktop, won't take up any space. And again, like the Nook of similar design, we have an external laptop style power supply, which is exactly what we would expect. So we'll go ahead and put this stuff back in the box. Now in the links below this video, there is an Amazon link. That Amazon link is an affiliate link. I make money from a small commission from Amazon if you make any purchases. And well, I won't know who made the purchase. I do know what was purchased and when, because I have to know what commissions to expect. Commissions are very small, and it doesn't change your price at all. However, do know that a small commission does come back to me, and I'm required to tell you that. But it's a great way to support the channel, even if you're buying other things at Amazon. Anything that my link, when my link takes you to Amazon, say you click on the link to look at the details and specs of this little machine here, and then you end up searching for something else on Amazon while you're there and making a purchase, because my link initiated your visit to Amazon, I would get a commission on anything you buy, anything at all. So appreciate the support, and that's how that works. Okay, here we go. First time taking this out of its packaging here. There it is. Okay, so we have exactly as it appears to be. The output on the back is VGA and HDMI and a Type-C USB. Then we've got 2 USB 3.0s and probably a gigabit LAN connector here. On the front that you're seeing, 2 USB 3, 2 USB 2, an SD micro SD card reader, headphone out, microphone input, so they've separated those two out, and your power switch. There's also supposedly a fingerprint reader on here, like a cell phone. I don't know why that's important. This shows it to be an Intel Core i5, and the model is 8279U, so that's going to be a laptop style processor. They show the manufacturer's site as being www.isnunmu. Okay, I'm going to have to write that one down because I, S like Sam, N like Nancy, U, N like Nancy, M like Mary, U.com. That just rolls off the tongue, huh? Now, I've never fired this up before, so let's go through the whole startup process. If we look at the Amazon page for this, we can certainly see what specs they promote over at Amazon. Let's take a quick look over there and learn a little bit more about this device. If I go to my OBS program, I should be able to share that with you. I think. This should work right here. There it is. Okay, so we got the pictures here on the left. They show it sitting on a desk and how small it is there. Over here you'll see there's a price of $479.99 here at Amazon.com in the USA, and there's a coupon. If you click the box, you can save, I guess I shouldn't have clicked the box. You can save $30. That brings that price down to $450. It's showing it's a Windows 11 Pro, an 8th gen processor that cranks up to 4.1 gigahertz with 4 cores and 8 threads. 16 gigs of DDR4 with a 256 gig M.2 solid state drive with 4K HDMI output and a VGA connector and Type-C USB 3.0. Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 4.0. Now, bear in mind, current Wi-Fi is Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth, I think, is 5.2. So this computer is a little bit older. It's intended for business use, but it would also be great for an HT PC, a home theater PC. We look at the specifications that they claim here, and they're very open about it being 8th gen, or 4 generations behind. Pre-installed Windows 11 Pro system, mini PC featuring the latest Core i5-8279U processor. Right, we talked all about this already. And then it has the 16 gigs of DDR4, 256 gig NVMe. More about the connectivity and resolution, and of course the fingerprint unlock and its space-saving design. And up here you'll see there is another version which doubles the solid-state drive size to 512 gig. But we'll talk about why the drive size is smaller and why that's important. Let me first get back to camera 1. Here we go. Okay. Machines like this, understand they're designed to fit a particular need or niche, and multiple needs. And to give you some examples, and these are not the only examples, but just some that come to mind. This would be a great PC to have as the heart and soul of a home theater experience if you wanted to have something like this on your entertainment center that's not distracting and it's not noisy. This is great for streaming media. You can log into your Netflix account, your Paramount, Hulu, Amazon Prime, whatever it is, and stream your content directly from there through the box and onto your big screen TV. You can also utilize this as a means to host your own video content on something like a network attached storage device, and then running Plex or even just VLC with networking enabled. You can, using a keyboard and mouse, obviously, have turn a TV into a smart TV, essentially, right? You can browse the internet on it. You can watch YouTube on it. So as long as your TV has an HDMI input, and what TV hasn't had that for the last 15 years or more, you basically have a full PC without the noise. And running Windows 11, the latest edition Pro, knows that your support is going to be good until Windows 11 end of life, which I don't even know when that is. It's several years. So you don't need more than 16 gigs of RAM for a machine like this. It's not intended to run Prime 95 on, and it's not a gaming machine. Another way where this is beneficial is in a lot of businesses. With businesses, we generally want the employees to save their work on a shared storage device so other employees can pick up the work, or they can pick up the work from other employees at any given time. And so for that reason, we do not want them saving data on their local storage. In my business, it is, unless otherwise stated in the contract, it is by default that we save our customers time and money by not backing up their workstations, because there's nothing that should be on the workstations. If a workstation were to fail or have a problem, that employee is to simply get out of their chair and move to a different workstation and get back to work. Then they will open a trouble ticket with my company, and we'll come out after business hours and we will fix the problem computer. That way we don't have all the undue stress of, hey, we need you over here now. We still will get that if there's a problem with the shared storage device, whether that's a server or a network attached storage. If it goes down, none of the employees can work and none of the customers can be helped. And that does then create an emergency. Although for my customers who pay for it, we have a backup server and I just flip a switch. That's all I have to do. I can do it remotely and they run on the backup server. And again, this takes all the pressure off and it keeps their employees productive and it keeps their customers helped, and it all happens very seamlessly. But if you give a customer, rather, if you give my customer, right, is somebody else's employee. And if I give that employee all this hard drive space, they might start using it. And if they start using it, I might find out about it a year or 2 years down the road when there's a problem. And they say, oh no, I got to get my data off of that. Their data was never supposed to be on it. By making the drive is not much bigger than what we really need, right? You got to plan for Windows updates. You got to plan for software installations, whether that's Quicken, QuickBooks, Microsoft Office, whatever it is they use. But in general, most workstations in an office don't use more than 100 gigabytes of hard disk space. So by going with 256 on this, that's more than enough. And what I love about it is there have been occasions where an employee opens a trouble ticket because their computer is saying low on disk space. Well, you know what that means. That employee's been saving items onto their personal computer. And since they don't have a lot of space, they don't get away with that very long before it brings it to my attention. And at that point, I explain to the employee what they're already supposed to know, which is that is not where you put your files. I had an employee, this has happened on more than one occasion, that was offloading the pictures from their phone onto their computer. And then the boss and the boss's wife instructed this employee to offload their pictures off of their phones because they didn't know how to do it. And what happened was they moved those pictures, after I told them you can't save this stuff to your local computer. There's a reason why the space is limited. Well, they started putting it on the network attached storage drive. And I charge the customers for backups, right? Depending on the frequency and the size of the backup. And the backup size doubled, seemingly overnight. It was probably like a week. And, the backup size went from, let's say 300,000 files to 500,000 files. And the physical size nearly doubled. So the time it takes me to do the backup was nearly twice as long. And I have to determine, do I need to adjust my rates? I mean, is this company doing that much business? If so, they can afford to pay me more. And secondly, they're demanding more from me, whether they realize it or not. There's more data, it takes more time, and there's more data to lose. So I start looking at sorting folders by the date. And there's a couple of company folders that are regularly used by the employees. And so of course, those were on top. But as I dug down a little deeper, each employee has their own folder, again, for business use. And within that was a photos directory. And that photos directory proved to contain 40% of all the data on the server from one employee. And so look, I just said to the employee, I go, you're killing me. I go, you have got this particular, I said, lately I've been baffled because your data backup set has nearly doubled in size and the backup time is taking nearly twice as long. And upon investigating why, I found this particular folder of yours that you didn't have last week. And I want you to know that the traffic that you're generating on the network is slowing the entire office down. The backup space is going to require us to buy new backup drives because they won't be large enough soon. They won't be large enough to have the capacity of the amount of data you guys have. And I just want to know, should we order more backup drives and I can adjust my rate? Or do you want to put those photos off of, I don't know what those photos are. Is that something you want to, that the boss is authorizing these added expenditures, or do you want to find another place for those photos? But I need to know relatively soon, because at this rate, backup drives aren't going to have the capacity that we need, and I won't be able to do the backups anymore until they are replaced. And the amount of time that I am budgeting for your company based on what I'm charging you would need to be reconsidered and adjusted accordingly. And they instantly responded with an embarrassing apology, like, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize how many photos those were. The boss and his wife asked me to take these photos off their phone, and I apologize for the trouble it's caused you, and I have removed them. And sure enough, when I did the backup the next week, everything was back to normal, and we saw the normal data growth path. And you can imagine now, if that same customer, if we had a 1 terabyte or a 2 terabyte drive in their machine, that machine wouldn't be getting backed up, number one. Number two, by the time I was made aware of it, it would be well out of control. So by putting a small drive in these machines, they force the user to store their data somewhere else. And for both a media center PC or a home theater PC, or as a workstation for an office, this is preferred. We don't want to have a giant file storage server next to the TV. Most people will find that unacceptable. It's an eyesore and it's noisy. So the idea is that you would pull it off the network from somewhere, whether that's on your LAN, somewhere else in the house, or if it's off the cloud from a streaming service. And that's the logic behind it. And these machines are great for the average ordinary home user that just wants to check their email, go online, pay some bills, book plane tickets or vacations, buy concert tickets, all that average stuff people do, watch YouTube videos. You can set this on your desk, you hook up your monitor, your keyboard, your mouse, you plug it into power here, and you can do Wi-Fi or plug an Ethernet cable into it. And now you don't have this giant machine to worry about dust. You don't have to worry about scratching it up with the chair. A lot of people put their towers down on the floor, especially in offices. And you'll see them when I bring them in here to do repairs or upgrades. They are marked up from the chairs, the wheels on the chairs. They have the chairs have legs, and then the legs have wheels under them. And as the employee scoots in and out, or moves their chair or shifts it around, keeps banging into the computer, and it scars them up pretty good. For one of my clients, we started them off with a Nook, and they loved it so much they had another one for the receptionist, because the receptionist is sort of backed into a corner and space is at a premium. And they said, hey, do you think that would be okay to put in for the receptionist? I said, absolutely, no problem. And so instead of taking any valuable floor space at the receptionist desk that you walk into the building, there are little shelves and stuff that are hidden from customer view, and the little Nook just sits in there tucked in, and it gives them everything they need, no differently than having a regular desktop computer. And so that's the spirit behind what we're looking at here. And whether I mentioned other manufacturers, brands, and similar form factors, that's who they're designed for in part. Of course, you may have a unique reason for wanting one as well, and you just have to understand that these are kind of like a laptop without the screen or the battery, in that you don't really have to worry about dusting as much, and the parts inside are going to be proprietary outside of upgrading your storage and upgrading your RAM. There's nothing else in here that you're going to be able to repair. So these machines, much like laptops, once they're out of warranty, if you have a board problem, they can often be more money to repair than to replace. Now, let's fire it up and see what it looks like. It's probably going to give us a standard Windows 11 first-time installation. What do they call that? When the manufacturers have a special installation of Windows, so that you're not doing the full install, you're just doing the tail end of it, where it wants to know your country and your username, etc. Let's see what happens, and let's see if it's going to force us to create a Microsoft account. I think we can get around that, but we're going to see what happens here. this out of the way. I did see the Samsung 970 EVO 2 terabyte on Amazon today for $169.99, but they sold out quick. I wasn't fast enough to grab one, but thankfully I'm not in a position where I needed one, but I certainly wouldn't have mind had it an extra, just to have around. But whenever you see that happen, it'll probably happen again. I still believe they're phasing out the Gen 3 NVMe's. And there was a chip contamination where they had to throw away a bunch of chips over at Western Digital. Has a chip manufacturing plant, and it got contaminated, but they don't really give you much information other than the contamination required them to throw away a boatload of chips, which created a little bit of a shortage, as you can imagine. Okay, so here's our power adapter. Get that in here. We'll grab an HDMI cable, which I have over here. Here we go. And what do I need? HDMI power. Oh, keyboard and a mouse, I think is all I need. We're going to leave it off the network for right now just to see what it does. So here's my keyboard and mouse. I guess I can plug it in the back. Doesn't matter. A waste of a USB 3.0 port for plugging in a keyboard and mouse unless you can type 40 gigabits a second, which I would love to see. Okay. Let's go to my HDMI input on OBS here. And let's put myself up. It's not working. Put myself up in the corner. And we'll fire up the HDMI, and I'll hit the power button. Uh-oh. Oh, that's not the power button, that's the fingerprint reader. Okay, power button is right on here on the front, Carey. Right here. I'll tap that. Let you guys see that. It's dead quiet, I don't hear anything. Let's see if we get some video output. Here we go. Oh, I hear that fan. Here we go. Okay, we want English. There we go. United States. Keyboard is US. Skip any secondary keyboard layout. A whole bunch of Wi-Fi networks. I'm going to say I don't have internet. Connect now to quickly get started. Continue with limited setup. That's what we want for right now. You got to review the license agreement, and there's no option other than accept. So there you go. What are you going to do? Who's going to use this device? We'll say user is going to use it. And we'll put enter for a password, leaving the password blank. We'll leave location settings on so our date and time can be sent and adjusted automatically. We don't have to deal with it. I turn everything else off and hit next. Now all that can be adjusted and changed after the fact, just in case the end user doesn't like it set up that way. If I'm quiet, you can hear that fan a little bit. I can feel the air coming out of the back of it. And you'll see it spikes up for a moment and then it quiets down. This is the normal operation of a PC under most operating conditions. It is not the slam it full bore like Prime 95 for 20 minutes nonstop. You'll hear it. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. That is the proper operation, so that if it does get a little bit noisy, it's just momentary. People that push their computers that hard where the fans are on full bore all the time is a sign that they are overutilizing their PC. Perhaps it's a bit under their PC requirements. If they're pushing a computer that hard, they need a better, more powerful computer. But there are some, very few, people who do such work that there isn't a computer in existence that they wouldn't push to that limit. But those people are few and far between. So we're getting the final Windows 11 setup being done right now based on the answers to the questions it just asked us. And so we should be at the desktop here very shortly. Once we're at the desktop, then I'll go ahead and plug it into the network. That way it's not going to force me to create a Microsoft account. We've already passed that step now. Then we can do all the Windows updates that have come out since this thing, since whatever installation of Windows this manufacturer used, we don't know how old that is. So whenever you get a new computer or a new cell phone, the first thing you're going to want to do is update it to the latest version of software. It's critical for security. And well, the computer will eventually do that on its own. You know, it only takes a second to steal your identity. So that's why I would recommend that order of events. So here we're at the desktop, Windows 11 desktop, with this start button there and everything in the middle. And of course that can be shifted to the left. I've already gone through all that. And that's been talked about ad nauseum here on YouTube, so I'm not going to repeat those steps. I'm just going to leave it where it is, grab my Ethernet cable, and we'll just plug her in like so. And then it should auto-detect that it's been plugged in. It will be assigned an IP address from the router automatically. And then we're online. So with Windows 11, things are moved around a little bit, but it's just Windows 10. At this point, there's really not much difference between the two. I don't see any reason why anybody would purposely put Windows 11 on a machine. However, that's their cross to bear. This is what we have, and so we'll work with it. There's nothing wrong with Windows 11, and since the machine comes with it, I wouldn't downgrade it. But if the machine had Windows 10, I wouldn't upgrade it. Either one of those exercises is a futile attempt to, you know, it has no difference in the world. At least not until October 14th of 2025, when Windows 10 support ends. So let's go ahead and click on Settings, and we'll go to Windows Update. And let's see how many updates we're missing. Ooh, a lot. We'll go ahead and hit Download Now on these. And this is why it's so important, right? Because all this stuff is updated for a reason. There's a reason why they don't charge you for it. But these programmers and developers who wrote these updates, these are things that are already installed. But software is not done yet. We're using technology before we've perfected the technology. So that's why, if you're not a computer or technical person and you wonder why all the updates, why don't they just fix this? There is hundreds of millions of lines of code, and it's being utilized by hackers in ways that was never intended. So no one ever thought to use it that way. Then they have to go and correct that in the code, and then they have to issue the update, which then sometimes opens up another exploit where they have to update it again. So as a society, we are using technology in a way that it wasn't designed to be used, and we haven't made sure it was right before we release it. If you look at the first cars that came out in the late 1800s, early 1900s, especially if you look at like the Ford Model T, one of the first mass-produced cars, and you look at a modern car today, it doesn't even drive the same. You've got foot pedals and throttle controls in weird places that do weird things. So you could say it's just human nature to release products before we've had time to evolve them, but it's paying for those products that pays for the research and development and evolution of the product. And so software will continue to constantly be updated because we're still in the infancy of operating systems and of software in general. And especially in the way that we use it now. It was one thing when we used it on an individual computer back in the 80s, or perhaps even in the early 90s, where a computer wasn't connected to any other computers. We still had issues with viruses getting exchanged on floppy disks. However, those viruses weren't able to steal data because there was no way to transmit it. So all the software that was written in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and 90s wasn't written for a connected world. So now the software that's come out initially was designed for a connected world. And we find that people are nasty to each other, generally speaking. People are not nice to one another. In general, all people are jerks, right? If people weren't jerks, we wouldn't need passwords. All a password is a reminder to you that you can't trust anybody. Anybody, right? They say, never give your password to anyone ever. So that is inherent in human nature, one, to drive some fear, but also to raise awareness that those you trust the most, or rather those you least expect to harm you, may in fact harm you. So don't tempt them. It is a sad state of humanity that we call ourselves evolved, and yet this requirement for passwords is simply because of other people. So that's why software has to keep getting updated in the same vein as there are lots of other people that want to take something from you. And if you refuse to update your software because you think updates break a computer, they love you. You make it so easy for them to steal from you. So it's just jerks on jerks. And it's really, really disgusting that as a species, this is what we have evolved to. Now, given that is what it is, it's of critical importance, since what I'm telling you is undeniable. There's locks on your doors, of your car doors. There's locks on your home. We have guns to defend ourselves. And those things can be used to provoke and to aggravate, and totally against what their inventors created them for. People will steal catalytic converters out of the bottom of your car. They're drilling holes in gas tanks to steal gas. A $2,500, removal and reinstallation of a gas tank for $60 worth of gas if the tank was full. It is ridiculous that the world is filled with so many jerks. But this is why we have locks. And this is why with a computer, those locks are called passwords. Those are the keys. They are virtual keys. And these software updates that you guys think are a pain in the butt, they're only there to protect you. If you wish to ignore that protection and leave yourself at risk, understand the consequences of your decision. These updates, in my opinion, they should charge for these, because somebody got paid to do the research and write the code, and you're not paying them. That money's coming out of the corporations. The problem when you're getting something for free in our society that I've experienced is people don't value anything that's free. So until they put a price on this, only then will people start to understand the value of what they're giving away, in my opinion. And if you don't want to pay for your security, it's just like not paying for locks on your doors. Don't pay for it. If you don't want an alarm on your car, don't put one on there. I don't think it should be something required. The reason these happen automatically is because Microsoft has learned people won't do it, either because they don't know or they're misinformed with the amount of people that are vocal about the rare problems that occur during a Windows update. Give the impression that Windows updates are more problematic than they truly are. It's an illusion. It's a small group of people that are very, very loud. And when there are problems with Windows Update, you've seen I make videos and I talk about it. And I think I've had 4 videos in the last 6 years about a bad Windows Update. It is very, very uncommon, unless you're in a work environment where those updates should be tested before they're rolled out. So if anybody says, well, this took down our whole office, well, shame on you for being a terrible IT person or not having one. and that you would, standard company procedure at every corporation I've worked at, which includes Intel, is that you will test these updates before you release them to the corporation employees in the workstations. I mean, that's been boilerplate before the internet, right? When we were still using Lotus Notes and Novell NetWare, you still tested the updates before you rolled them out or deployed them, as they like to use different words in corporate America. And I don't think home users should deviate from what corporations are doing, because the things home users do could put a corporation out of business. But there's nothing a corporation does in regards to their IT department and the backups they do, the importance of those backups, how they're backed up, the frequency of the backup, as well as the company policies and procedures regarding updates or software installations without authorization from IT, would all benefit home users. No downside to home users for that. So the things I've learned in corporate America that at first I thought were just bureaucracy, all these things make sense. And it took me a while to figure it out, but then I was starting to piece it together to understand why we're doing it this. Why are we doing this, and why are we doing it with this frequency? And then something catastrophic happens, and you watch this whole process take effect, where everybody knows what to do, and the system is all back up and running with very little loss and fairly little downtime. It's sort of like we used to do fire drills back in the day. I don't know if people still do fire drills. You should. You should know where's the exit in case of a fire. If you need to get out of here quickly, how do you do it? And so you would rehearse it. Let's pretend that there's a fire. Let's have a drill, and let's have everybody go to your respective exits. Now, they would do this in corporations, but you should be doing this in a home. If you have children or anybody living on the second floor of the house, and that first floor is on fire, or there's a home invasion, how do they get out of the house? There should be an evacuation plan, whether that includes a rope ladder that can hang off the window, a safe room that's not going to help you in a fire. But there should be, everybody should know and be reminded how to get out. These updates, in a way, are there to prevent you from being in a situation where you'll have to be in a recovery situation. So I highly recommend, when you see updates available for any software, if it's your antivirus, your anti-malware, Microsoft Office, Windows, these updates are free for a reason. They are critical. And if you choose not to do them, the only person you hurt is yourself, potentially. So let me look here in the chat room and see what I've missed while we're waiting for these updates to install. Bob R. said the doors in my house were always open when I was young, and that changed over time. I'm sure somebody ruined it. Yeah, I used to leave my windows down and my doors unlocked when I parked my car in front of my house, until I woke up one morning to find the stereo had been stolen and beer bottles were located underneath my tires. Like, I don't know who did it. I don't know why they did it. I didn't do anything to them. It wasn't revenge. Just a random act of theft. Les Stevenson says, Carey, this is one neat computer. This would be a way to learn and use Windows 11. Like this mini computer, all you need is cheap monitor and you're in business. Well, that's true. Yeah. Mark Baggett said, Carey, I used your CDK's deals link to buy a Windows 11 key. Thank you. Had no issues. Wonderful, Mark. I'm glad you're able to take advantage of that. I've been talking with the folks at CDK Deals to extend our relationship and to continue to offer the keys to you at a discount. These deals are month to month, and it's been my goal to be with them for 12 months. I think I started back in November. And I've been very, very pleased with the quality of the product, the legitimacy of the product, and the quality of their support. I've had about 3 or 4 people, maybe 6 people since November that have had issues. About a third of those cases, the customer was the cause of the issue, and we were just trying to help the customer address the mistake they made. And then the other issues were relatively minor. We just basically had a communications problem, and then once they got me involved, that communication problem was resolved, and the entire problem was resolved. You know, in one case, CDK Deals authorized me to remote access the user's computer to just double check that they installed the right product the product key was for, and in fact issued me a secondary backup key for me to use for them if needed. So, it's a wonderful relationship with them. And I'm very, very proud to be associated with them. I have a couple of other software companies that are trying to steal me away from CDK Deals, and their emails go right to my junk mail folder. Steven says, hey, Carey, hope you are well. Long time no see. Right on. Hey, thank you, Steven. Robert Katnya with a €5 contribution says, hi, Carey from Slovenia. I love your shows. Thanks, man. Well, thank you, Robert. Right on. Temi K with a $5 Canadian contribution, and Oystein joining us in Norway contributes 100 Norwegian krona. Thank you both, Oystein and Temi. Oh, and Luke Greenia sent his usual. Thank you so much, Luke, as always. There's Patrick Russo in our chat room. Hey, Patrick. Chris Mole. A lot of familiar names here. Gil Garcia, Alhaj Tepej. I'm sure I'm completely and always mispronouncing his name, but I hope it becomes a term of endearment. Ken Stout joins us along with Gunnar Glenn, and Sarge Tech, BH Ringer, Greg Guy, Troll McTrollington, Martin Wolferts, Steve Mercure, Rod Straub, Watching You Daily is the name of a user here. Welcome in, everybody. Good to see most familiar faces, or familiar names. And let me take another look at what we're doing here. What is happening on these updates? Installing. Now, we could restart, but I would feel better to just go ahead and let this finish first. And then after that, we'll restart. And we've got an optional update we'll also grab, and then also look for, we'll check for updates again to see if there's any updates to our updates. So do plan accordingly for this. If you buy a brand new laptop, the first thing you should do is charge the battery until the light goes out on the laptop that indicates the battery is charged, and then go to Windows Update and plan for an hour or two of doing updates. That is, like I said, the software is constantly evolving. We're still in the infancy stages. The product is not ready, and it's just like the old commercial that we will serve no wine before it's time doesn't apply into manufacturing. Manufacturing will get product out as quickly as they can and fix everything else later, using the profits they made from selling the product to pay for the research and development required to fix the product. When Elon Musk first came out with the Tesla, it was very expensive, and the goal was, we want to make this less expensive. We want to make this affordable for everybody, so we're doing a good thing for the environment. And it's taken a longer time than Elon projected, but everything Elon projects takes longer than he's very optimistic. But he was very open that those people that are early adopters are paying for the research and development so that we can ramp up production. As you ramp up production, the cost of materials goes down because you're buying in bulk. They're developing their own batteries. They're not buying their batteries from a third party. That reduces the cost and makes for a better battery. And that's all money invested through the sales of the cars that generated more people to have interest in owning stock. And it's those wealthy pioneers that we need to thank, because that first model Tesla, that Roadster, was a piece of junk. Elon launched his into space. That's how much he liked it. So now they've done a much better job on the Model S, which is still a $100,000 car. They've got the Model 3, which you're looking at 40, 50, 60,000. probably 50, 60,000 US dollars. You've got the Model Y, again, you're looking around $60,000, but that's nearly half. So if he keeps moving forward at this pace, his goal was to be at a $30,000 price range, and perhaps he'll get there. Other companies have gotten there, like Nissan Leaf, but their range is very, very low, and you can buy a Nissan Leaf all-electric vehicle very inexpensively on the used car market. People just don't want them. You might only get 80 miles out of it. And if you're just going back and forth to work every day and you plug it in at night, that may be all you need. But that limited range is severely hurt the value of a Nissan Leaf. And BMW stopped making the i3. That was a little tiny, to me it was like a coffin on wheels, not much bigger than a smart car. But you've got to make the cars smaller to make them lightweight so you can extend the battery life. But a smaller car doesn't have room for as much batteries. So Tesla still, as far as I'm concerned, leads the way. And while we see other car manufacturers promoting alternatives to Tesla, I've yet to see any actually make it to the market. They're even making some here in Phoenix. There's, I think, two electric car manufacturers, one making a pickup truck and the other's making I think Lucid, L-U-C-I-D, is making a faster, more luxurious electric car with greater range. But that's what they all say until they actually come to market. And they'll have some model they give to journalists, which is not off of a production floor, but rather it's kind of a one-off of what their goal is to make. And you watch these videos and it's impressive. But it's no different than Tesla talking about the Cybertruck, right? That Cybertruck is a little bit large to be in a lane of traffic, and they were talking about shrinking it down a little bit. That also reduces costs. And we still haven't seen anything for the Cybertruck, or for that matter, their semi-truck, autonomous, or their new Roadster that's supposed to be a rocket ship, super fast, like a motorcycle 0 to 60 times in a little sports car. But it's all in development. This all takes time and it all takes money. All those engineers have to get paid, and all those parts have to be fabricated, and you've got to pay all those parts, and then you got to pay to modify them, and then you got to figure out all the testing that has to be done, and then you've got to deal with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or as they call NHTSA. Not easy to start manufacturing cars when there are already these behemoths doing it. It's a very, very expensive and impractical thing to do. Most people would invent a car or a design and then sell that off to a big car manufacturer. Elon's had to fight with many of his stockholders who just want to cut and run. And he's like, no, I'm not selling it off. I'm here to change the world in a positive way and make these cars affordable. And he gives away his battery technology for anybody to duplicate in that endeavor. So I have a lot of respect for him. Now, did we get all our updates? Let's take a look, see where we're at. Pending restart. All right, let's go ahead and restart it. This may not be a best example of restart time because it's going to apply those updates it downloaded. And so that's going to take a bit longer than a normal restart. Joey says he wants to see an electric minivan and see it made wheelchair accessible. Joey, Volkswagen's coming out with the new microbus, Volkswagen microbus, and it will be all electric. What's really funny is on the gas pedal and the brake pedal, they have emblems, little logos. And so the logo on the gas pedal is the play button, like the green triangle. And then the brake pedal has the emblem of the pause or stop symbol. What I thought was really, not that you're looking at the pedals, right, because it's all electric. I just thought that was a really clever thing for the designers to put into the car. The Volkswagen bus was always quirky, and so they're continuing in that spirit, and it looks like a very nice and affordable microvan in the same spirit. And perhaps there's always companies aftermarket that do the manufacturers of the cars don't make, to the best of my knowledge, wheelchair accessible cars. That's always done by third parties. And much the same way, there's companies like Hennessy, Shelby, Roush that enhance performance of a car. You can buy a brand new Mustang, for example, and then give it over to Roush or give it over to Shelby, and they will take your brand new car and they'll throw a supercharger, turbocharger, whatever they do, reprogram the ECU and give you 200, 300, 400 more horsepower out of that car. They do that with pickup trucks now too. And that's a whole nother market. I mean, to have that kind of money to go buy a brand new car for $60,000, $70,000, and then hand it over and pay another $30,000, $40,000 for the upgrades. But you'll have something, you know, to people who know what that is, certainly adds to the value of the car, the resale value. Catherine says Mercedes has an accessibility division, and so has VW. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I know that with the customers that I have worked with here in the United States, the vans that the accessible vans they drive are retrofitted by a third-party company. I've not dealt with anybody who's had one from the factory. So that, you know, again, based on my experience, that was always done by third-party companies, but maybe that's changing. I don't know. Okay, we're back up at the desktop now, so we're going to go back to Windows Update and continue updating this computer before we can do really anything with it. We want to make sure we're safe, secure, and that we have the best performance available. And these updates aren't always just about security. They're also about performance. They're also about reliability. Sometimes they fix issues regarding everything from not being able to print to performance issues and compatibility issues. So again, they're free updates. There's no reason that I can think of to not grab them. Supergroup LA says there are great deals for Lenovo laptops going on now, up to 40% off. Where? He didn't say where they're available. Alhaj wants to know how you update the BIOS on this. That's a good question, and we'll find out here. A lot of times updates for machines like this will come through Windows Update. You're going to see that on Asus laptops, Dell laptops, HP laptops, and even Intel NUCs. Windows Update will cover that. We're not seeing any BIOS update coming through Windows Update, and that's probably because this is not a major brand name. So there may not be BIOS updates. One of the downsides of buying from a smaller manufacturer is they don't have the money to pay the research and developers and programmers to write the BIOS updates. And I think a lot of people don't really understand how much that costs. So if they're selling this for $450 on Amazon, there's not a lot of profit there. I mean, between the packaging they're paying for and getting it distributed, shipped out, and then Amazon's going to take a cut, there's not a lot of money to be made. So you'd have to sell in amazing bulk, what we call scaling. Not everybody's business ideas are scalable. And so when you look at how many computers Dell and HP and Asus and Acer sell, they're selling probably in 1 week what this company might sell in a year. So they've got a lot more money to, as well as it's in many cases not their own money, sometimes it's investors' money. But regardless of where the money comes from, it's generally in proportion to the sales. And so if you're with a niche manufacturer, there's a high likelihood that you're not going to get updates, or they will be extraordinarily infrequent due to the extreme cost of not only developing but also distributing those updates. And and when they do, oftentimes there's no way for the customer to know that unless they specifically go looking. But we'll take a look at that once we're done with our Windows updates and see where we're at with that. It's a good point that you make there. It's a valid concern. Most BIOS updates occur for compatibility reasons, but since we can't change a CPU on this, those compatibility reasons at this time, there are none. But if we reach a point where drives start getting in a capacity of 8 terabytes, or, well, they're already at 8. If they get to a capacity that would require a BIOS update, there would be some concern that a machine like this wouldn't offer that. And if your priority is to have those kind of updates and to have them on a regular basis, I would certainly emphasize this is not a machine for you, and you should stick with a name brand bulk manufacturer, whether it's Intel with their NUC or even Gigabyte with their Bricks model, are very similar to this if you want that same form factor. But you do, in this industry, get what you pay for. So here at this price point, you know, you're not getting a 12th or even an 11th gen. You're not getting a 10th or a 9th gen. You're going back to 8th gen. And that's why the price is so attractive. It is not the latest and greatest. And it doesn't necessarily need all the updates because it's been out for so long. The updates you get now are already addressing all the stuff when the product was introduced. For the most part, the bulk of your updates occur when a new product is introduced. After the product has been on the market for a year, all the major issues with it have been identified by a very vocal public, and the product is either pulled from the market or the updates are released to address the issues. So that includes the operating system, not just the hardware. And remember, all this hardware that's in here is all bought from other companies. So one company makes the network chip, one company makes the sound chip, one company makes the CPU, that's Intel. One company might make the cooling fan, another company might make the case, another company makes the power supply. And all they're doing is and it's no different than any company. Chrysler doesn't make the chairs that you sit in the car. Those seats, the dashboard, the steering wheel, all that is thrown to another vendor. Ford and all the other car makers, they don't make their own tires. They don't make their own brakes. All that stuff is contracted out to third-party manufacturers, and they put it all together. This is no different. So when you're buying from a larger company like Dell or, say, Intel, a lot of the components are, in fact, made by those companies. So they have a little bit more control and responsibility to updates. But if the manufacturer of the sound chip doesn't release any updates, because it was the cheapest sound chip they could buy, then they don't have any updates, they being the quote-unquote manufacturer of the machine, then have no updates to pass on to you. Whereas if the company has designed that sound chip, then they're also responsible for creating the software and firmware for that sound chip and keeping it up to date, if they so choose to. Generally, it's in their best interest to do that so that they have a longer usability of that part, so they can use it in generations of motherboards. Right? They can keep the same sound chip if they've got good software and firmware for it. They don't have to redesign it. They don't have to go through all that cost of engineering, researching, developing, and then manufacturing. They've already done that, and they can just simply carry that sound chip over from 7th gen to 8th gen to 9th gen to AMD's Ryzen, and it's the same sound card, and it's just reducing their cost. When they reduce their cost, it reduces your cost when you're shopping. Okay, so let me make my screen a little bigger so I can see. Oh, still says it's downloading. Yeah, for some reason this update will just kind of pause here. So we'll just go ahead and, this Intel update says there's an install error, but I'm not worried about that one. There we go. Now that switched over to installing. So we'll give that a couple minutes to finish up, reboot, and repeat this process again. Why Davies in the chat room has a question for me. I've bought a new Intel Core i9-12900K CPU. I've read on Intel's website that you need Windows 11 to make the most of the processor. The processor will work in Windows 10, and it works quite well. But it is more efficient on Windows 11. Whether or not that's important to any specific individual user depends on the user and how they're using the machine. But it is not a requirement. We've certainly done 12th gen builds here on the channel, at least one anyway, and we put Windows 10 on it, and it's rocket ship fast. There's Martin Jameson joining us in the chat room. Hi, Marvin. Alhaj says AMI makes the BIOS for them. Yes, but AMI will not present their BIOS to you. AMI strictly has customer confidentiality, and so anything regarding any updates from this computer would have to go through the manufacturer. AMI probably won't even answer your email and will not provide anything to you because they don't have that authorization. And that's true of all BIOS manufacturers to the contractual negotiations they have with companies like Dell, HP. Anybody they write a BIOS for, they didn't write it for you. They wrote it for the manufacturer. And you can only retrieve it from the manufacturer. The manufacturer must approve. AMI cannot potentially damage or spy on you, damage your computer through an unauthorized BIOS update. So for that reason, and I'm sure other reasons, you must go through the manufacturer. You can hear that fan's running, you know, it spikes up, calms down. Right now it's not fast, you know, the fan is not spinning at full speed, but it's also not spinning at low speed. It sounds like it's right around 60, 65% of its normal speed. So a little louder than normal, than an idle, but not annoying. Just kind of sounds like room noise, a little bit of white noise. Okay, what is this thing doing now? 34%, okay. I have to make my screen bigger to read it, so guess you gotta give me a second. Because when I make the screen bigger to read it, I can't see the chat room. So I keep making it smaller so I can see the chat, and then I have to make it bigger so I can see the status. That's why I need two monitors. Unfortunately, it would block the cameras. The second monitor would block the cameras, so I haven't quite figured this out yet, but it's something I'm working on. And late night thoughts, I think about different possibilities, stacking monitors one above the other, things like that. Then I wouldn't have any room for my timer, my clock. I'll figure something out someday. In the meantime, you just bear with me as I go through the procedures to switch back and forth. Getting there, about 2/3 of the way there. Hopefully we'll have this done soon enough. So far, this experience has been a true plug and play. You know, I haven't had to modify anything to get it running. You know, you've seen me open up some new computers that required repair. There's not a whole lot to break in these with regards to anything that could be damaged or disconnected in shipping. So the durability of these is also something to be considered. The fact that it's all solid state with no mechanical hard drive not only improves performance, but the ruggedness of the machine. Not that you should test that, but I can tell you I can knock this off the desk onto the floor, and apart from some potential physical damage to the plastic case, shouldn't cause any harm to the reliability or operation of the internals. They're all surface mounted technology in solid state with no moving parts, so there's not a whole lot to break there. Still, you could break it that way, but it's much less likely than a traditional computer or one with a mechanical drive. So in certain environments, you could put this in a semi-truck, for example, where there's a lot of vibration in the cab. Wouldn't affect that. And if you're a truck driver and you want a computer that you want to have on the road with you at the truck stops at night and things like that, you don't have a lot of space in that tractor trailer, something like this, which is low power, you can run it off a generator, you could run it right off the truck's power, and you just have to figure out a monitor for it, I suppose. But the vibrations that would occur on a semi-truck, this would be ideal for that, as an example. %, we're almost there. Almost there, that's a big update. John Lewis says hello from Brazil. Hey, John. Does the computer feel hot? No. There's some heat coming out the back where the vents are, and you can feel the air coming out not even like a hairdryer, it's not coming out that much, but there is heat coming out back here. There is no heat whatsoever anywhere around it. It's cooler than room temperature, except for back here where you can feel the air. And of course, when you hear the fan ramp up, it's pretty quiet right now, then of course you can feel the air even more. It's not, you see me use that air duster. It's not coming out with that kind of pressure. It's when you really hear that fan ramp up, you can certainly feel the air moving, but it is not enough that you would use to dust a computer. I mean, it's noticeable, but it's not extreme in any way. Okay, this wants to restart. They do make units like this without fans. And as you can imagine, if you wanted to overheat them and cause them to throttle, it's not difficult to do. I mean, you could do that with this design as it is. It would only be worse with a passive cooler, but it's possible. And as long as you're just playing media back with it and you're not really pushing it hard, or if it's just, ramping up and down under normal usage, those passive coolers do work well. Noxua just came out with one for desktop CPUs. And of course, you can absolutely cause your desktop CPU to overheat with it. It's not what it's made for. Excuse me. So that fan is cranked up here while it's finishing these updates, and hopefully the microphone's picking that up. Okay, back at the desktop, so I can go back to full screen on this side, then back over to Windows Updates again. Let's see where we're at. Gainsy95 said, Carey, I purchased the AMD chipset notifier. What a brilliant piece of software. Well, I appreciate that, but AMD just came out with their own a couple of months ago, so sort of negates the point of mine. The point of releasing mine was to put a fire under AMD's butt. Apparently it worked, or that's purely coincidence. But regardless, AMD now does notify you not only of AMD graphics card drivers, which they had done for a long time, but of the AMD chipset driver updates as well. So it sort of makes my tool redundant. But at the time, AMD didn't. So like I said, either coincidence that AMD suddenly made that a priority. In my opinion, it should have come out in tandem with the release of the very first AMD chipset. However, or the Ryzen-related chipsets. What their internal decisions were, I have no idea. But thank goodness they got there. It was just one more thing that was separating the value of Intel over AMD. And now that AMD's done that, they're closing the gap on that value differential. Okay, so those updates were installed, and let's go and hit check for updates one more time, and ideally it'll say there's no more after all of that. And then, assuming so, we'll give it one more reboot to make sure all the updates are applied. Even though it doesn't require one, we're just going to make sure. So I also want to adjust my resolution. Display settings. I think I'm in 4K mode here. Advanced display. Yeah, it's in 4K. It's in here somewhere. Like I say, they move everything around on Windows 11. Display settings. Isn't that where I was? Display resolution. Here we go. It was in front of me the whole time, which is usually the case. We'll keep those changes. I can read it a little better now. And let's restart. No, start menu's in the middle. We'll restart. Power buttons all the way over here, Carey. You got to keep moving stuff. It's like being at Costco. They had the chips over here. Yeah, no, they're the opposite. You got to flip the store upside down and got to keep you on your toes. They don't respect the value of your time at Costco. They want you to not be able to find what you're looking for in the hopes that in your pursuit to locate it, you'll find other things you weren't even looking for and add them to your cart. It's one of the most disrespectful things I think a retailer can do, is intentionally move things in order to keep you looking for it. And that is a staple of what it is to be Costco. I still shop there, but you better believe if I'm looking for something specific, I generally go to where it was last time. It is generally not there, and I do not look around the store. I find a Costco employee, and they're usually pretty easy to find, whether they're stocking shelves. I go, where is the thing that used to be here? And they usually just take me right to it. So I don't play their game. All right, now we can take a look at some of the specifications here of the machine. We can look and see if there's any BIOS updates, things of that nature. So let's, once again, I make the screen full screen for me. And let's take a look at some of our properties of this machine. If I right click on the start button and go to System, we can verify the Core i5-8279U at 2.4 gigahertz. I guess it turbos up. It doesn't show us that speed here. 16 gigs of installed RAM, 15.9 is usable because the integrated graphics needs a little bit of that RAM to display the screen. Windows 11 Pro. Is Windows activated? Let's just go up here and find out. We'll type in activation, see if Windows is activated. Activation state is active. Windows is activated with a digital license. Good, that was seamless. Storage, let's take a look at what we have for storage. Go down here to that yellow Windows Explorer icon and click this PC. Well, they gave us the 512 gig version. Right click, we'll go to properties. See that? I didn't know until I checked it. The Windows 11 Pro install is at 29 gigs, just about 30 gigs. and it's utilizing a very small part of the drive, a lot of free space. I like to turn off drive indexing. My optimization tool for Windows 10 does that. I haven't tried it on Windows 11, and nor am I interested until such time as Windows 11 is more mature. So people ask me about whether or not my Windows 10 tool works on Windows 11. It's not called a Windows 10 tool for no reason. There's a reason why it doesn't say Windows 11. But they ask anyway. And so when the time comes and that seems appropriate, I'll deal with it. But it's just too, it's for the pioneers, and I don't really have an interest in that. It's the support costs for pioneers is too high for me to endure. So I'll let the pioneers, as pioneers do, carve their own path without me. And for my regular customers, of which are my bread and butter, I will continue to make sure I sell them stable computers that won't require, as much as I can control, numerous support calls to me for otherwise avoidable issues. So that's kind of a difference, when you're running a business. But be that as it may, that's going to take a minute to run. And what else do we need to look at here? The BIOS. What I'll do is I'll run CPU-Z on here. It's a great free utility. I always use the portable version of it. And we can see what the BIOS version is. If we go to the manufacturer's website, because we got to go through this. Once you go through that setup, I just close it and reopen it. And I'll go to Google. In fact, one of the things that I personally prefer is to make Google my home page. So what I'll do is hit those three dots up here. Well, I guess my camera's probably covering this. Let me close down camera 1 so you can see full screen what I'm doing here. Sometimes I forget that. Again, I've only got one screen I can see at a time. So thankfully I thought of that because I couldn't see what you guys are seeing while I'm doing it. All right, so start over, right up here. 3 little dots. We click on that and we go all the way down here to settings. And then under privacy, search and services, I go all the way to the bottom and it says address bar and search. I click anywhere on that. And at the bottom of this page, defaulting to Bing, I change that to Google. Then I go to start, home, and new tabs. And I say open these pages and I add a new page. And that page is going to be Google.com. There's no save or anything like that. Once you make these changes, you can just close the browser and reopen it again, and the changes should be effective immediately. And then what I'm going to do is get rid of that annoyance, and we'll go to the website of this manufacturer, which on the back of the box is the only place I see it. It's not really promoted anywhere. It's very strange. It does say we've got the 512 gig version. CK10 is this model number. They have 4 different models, including an AMD model. And, like I said, it's kind of vague what they sent me here. It's very generic. The website, where did I see the website? It's not on the box. It's not on the documentation that I've seen. Is it on the bottom of the Nook? Oh, it's not a Nook. Sorry. The Nook-like machine. Yeah, there it is. It's on the bottom. So it is let's go up here and do it. Let's go to the URL. ISNUNMU.com. I don't know how to say that. It's Numu. So this is the company. And they apparently have a social media presence. Products. Intel Core Mini PC, that's what this is. There are no products to list. About us. This professional mini PC manufacturer was born among a group of computer engineers who are passionate about advanced technology and design, is committed to innovation, blah, 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 goals and ambitions, blah, 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 humanized customer service system. Sunumu listens to every user's constructive opinions and understands customer needs. On this basis, a large number of innovations have been carried out and innovative ideas have been injected into every product of the company. Okay, well, that all sounds good. I don't see any specific examples, but we'll just take their word for it, I guess. This is their contact information with a Gmail address. That's not very professional. But, you know, it's a different culture over there, and I guess maybe they conduct business a different way, but I see no support options on this page. So I don't, oh, wait, here's support, warranty, and FAQ, but nothing about downloads. So you likely aren't going to receive much here. Apparently, this website appears to be a template that they haven't filled out, right? So the FAQ page is empty. Ah, well, you kind of have to expect this from these lesser known brands there out of China. So adjust your expectations accordingly. With CPU-Z, if I grab my utilities flash drive here and plug it in, I can just copy CPU-Z off of it, although it is a very small download. But while we're live, we'll just try to expedite everything. And Google is your friend if you want to see any of the, download any of the utilities you see me use. They're all available to download. And you can acquire them the same way I did using Google. Let's double click on that and bring up the 64-bit edition of the portable CPU-Z application. And let's see what we have for information. This identifies our chip. Yes. Yeah, you'll see it's running at 4 gigahertz, darn near 3.8, 3.9. If we go over to memory, we can see on SPD how many slots. Looks like there are 2 slots and only one is being used. So the benefit of that is they're using A-data RAM. That's 2666. You could download more RAM. Now you can buy another matching module and put it into the spare slot and double your RAM. You wouldn't have to replace both. And A-data is budget RAM. I recommend it. It's good RAM. There's our graphics card is the Iris Plus Graphics 655 that's built into the CPU. I don't care about benchmarks on a machine like this. This is not about benchmarks. This is about media playback or office work or general home usage. We have a version 5.13 of a BIOS from November, so that's fairly recent, and I don't know where it came from. And you'll see the manufacturer information has not been filled out, nor has the model information been filled out in the BIOS, where the CPU-Z and other tools extract that to know what you have and how to make adjustment recommendations or offerings to updates. So that's disappointing to see, but it's also a reason why this is $300-400 less than an Intel NUC of similar specifications. Now, if we look at the Intel driver and update tool, should work well on this. So we'll just go to Google and type in Intel driver update, whatever. First link is the one we want. And then we'll download that free utility right here. And we'll open this. And you can even use this on AMD machines that may have Intel networking cards or Intel wireless cards. And you don't have to pay for a third-party driver utility unless, in my opinion, you don't see the value of money and you trust third parties to give you the right drivers and not crash your computer without any liabilities. I never use them. Never, ever, ever. I might have used them a while back, but it's no longer necessary. Now, with Intel especially, you just download this utility. We'll download all the updates. We've got wireless updates. We've got Bluetooth updates. These usually go hand in hand. And then we've got an Intel display driver update as well that you notice Windows Update wasn't offering us any of these. So, well, it's still processing, disabling the indexing At the same time, we're also downloading files. You can see this machine multitasks just fine. Stuff like this doesn't cause an overheating situation. This is just data input output. That's not a problem. When we're slamming on the CPU for things like encoding, rendering, that sort of stuff, and you do that for non-stop full bore for 10, 15, 20 minutes, you really test the machine's mettle with regards to what it's capable of before generating so much power consumption that it gets so hot that it has to start shutting itself down to protect itself, which is great because back in the old days it would just crack in half. The CPUs would literally get so hot they would crack. And back then the CPUs were made from a ceramic material in order to withstand high heat. So you can imagine just the amount of heat we're talking about to cause a crack to occur. It's pretty crazy. And you'll see when it was done with that processing task, how the fan quieted right back down. Again, that is absolutely normal and expected operation of a computer. Your fans should not be running full bore all the time. And if your fans never run full bore, then you're barely using any power at all on your computer. You probably have a little too much computer. On the other hand, if your fans are running full bore all the time, you probably don't have enough computer, or you've got it configured incorrectly. Dave wants to know, Carey, do the settings that allow you to use some hard drive space for RAM actually work, and do you recommend it? So you're referring to a Windows swap file, sometimes referred to as a paging file or virtual memory. You want to avoid that as much as possible because the hard drive is much, much slower. As a result, you may have a computer that's capable of running 10 times faster if all you did was give it a little bit more RAM. And that was best exemplified recently on last Friday's show. So if you haven't seen that, you can see the difference RAM can make in the performance of a machine. But rather than the machine crashing, it will go to the hard drive using virtual memory. But it is painfully slow. I've seen people think, oh, I need to get a new computer. This one's too slow. You don't need a new computer. You just need to give that one adequate RAM. It's like running low on a tank of gas and you think you need to buy a new car. Okay. All right, now it looks like it wants me to, it's looking for some permissions here, so let me go full screen again so I can see what it's asking me to do. Okay, we'll just do install all and see what it does. These are relatively small drivers. The Windows, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth drivers should only take a moment. And these generally do not require a reboot. But at least by getting the drivers direct from Intel, we're not being gouged any money like third-party driver software companies that will come up with clever marketing ways to drive up their perceived value to you to part with your money. And we know we're getting the right driver, which third-party driver companies often get wrong at your expense. Once you alert them to it, many of them will respond and make corrections, but it's like you're working for them and paying for the opportunity. So here, you get it for free, you're getting it directly from the manufacturer, and you're getting it right the first time, and you don't have to go through those steps. You see how quick these drivers go in. Now the Intel graphics driver, that's a big 600 meg driver as I recall. And even that could take a little bit for it to unpack. So when we click yes, it starts to unpack that installation package, which contains hundreds of files. And that's what it's doing right now, as you see the little blue circle next to the cursor. And in just a moment, after it unpacks all those files, and there's a lot of them, then it executes the setup file. And then we'll get the installation screen. So there is some patience required even on the fastest computer. And this is true of NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel video drivers. They're humongous. As a result, it's a lot for the machine to unpack, literally. Finally, we can begin the installation. We have to scroll to the bottom to pretend like we've read this so we can agree to it, and hit start. Now it's taking those unpacked files, and then those files that are unpacked have to be expanded. They're compressed. They need to be expanded and then injected into the proper directories. Some go into Windows, some go into Windows System, some may go into program files or program files x86. Some files may go into hidden directories like the local roaming or other hidden files in a specific user account or a generic user account to all users. And then there are registry changes that are also made depending on the hardware of your machine, which Intel graphics card you have, and certain visual settings or other adaptive settings that it accommodates for a custom to your machine. And that's why we simply can't copy software from one computer to another. If all the computers were the same, like in the world of Apple, in theory that's very doable. But when we talk about the customization of the variety of hardware, so that the software has to accommodate each unique hardware variable, it creates millions of possible configurations. So if you're taking it from one configuration over here, like Microsoft Office, and you try to move that to another configuration that's different, and most of the time in the PC world, you're unlikely going to see two custom-built computers the same, especially if any time passed between their builds. It's highly likely the software won't work completely, and even if you can get it to work, it may not work 100%, and you may not know that for months after you've attempted to cut a corner for whatever reason people don't want to install. I lost my license. You know what? The licenses are cheap these days. You go to CDK deals and you can buy a license, 30, 40 bucks, and you're good to go. It's really no big deal. The software that claims to move the applications will cost you that much, and they won't guarantee the applications will be fully functional. So why not just do it right the first time? You'll spend a lot less money in the long run, and you'll save a lot of time. All right, so you see the graphics driver still installing. This is normal of any computer, and fan has really quieted down during this process. As you can see, it's not too CPU intensive during some of the install. As I'm speaking, the fan is slowly getting louder as different phases of the install. Some requires some CPU power and some don't. Again, that's what you want from a normally configured, properly configured, in my opinion, computer. You want to hear that fan cycling depending on how you're using the computer. Shouldn't just be one specific sound. If you're sensitive to it, you might consider a soundproofing case or earplugs. Earplugs are a lot cheaper. Or wear headphones that have noise canceling. You see the screen blanks out. When that screen blanks out, like what it's doing right now, that's because the video driver that was in use has been disabled and removed. The new video driver has been put in and then activated. It's sort of like changing a flat tire on a moving car. We have to get that tire stopped in order to get it off. And then that tire has to come off before the new tire can go on. And so that's why you'll see the video go blank during a video driver install. It's common sense when you think about it. I do see the perpetuation of fear-mongering regarding the amount of writes a solid-state drive can withstand. It'll likely withstand more writes than you have years left in your life. So if anybody has a solid-state drive that is worn due to write cycles, I would love to see one. I've never seen one in real life. It's like talking about Sasquatch or Bigfoot. I remain skeptical. When a solid-state drive exceeds the number of writes, which again takes approximately 70 years under normal usage of like 2 gigs a day or 40 gigs a day, whatever the average is on most solid-state drives for most users, it becomes read-only. It doesn't actually prevent the drive from working. It just prevents you from being able to write any more data to it. So even that's not devastating. But the idea that people inject fear into others for situations they themselves have never personally experienced, it's a little disconcerting to me, because solid-state drives haven't been around long enough to establish precisely what the average amount of time a solid-state drive can withstand writes to. In my experience, mechanical drives fail far more often than solid-state drives, and not only are they slower and they're less expensive, they're more prone to issues. So I got away from mechanical hard drives because they failed too much. It's far worth it to me to get the performance and the reliability out of a solid-state drive. Support calls due to failed drives, I don't think I've had one in 4 or 5 years. It just doesn't happen anymore. Never in my career have I seen a solid-state drive that's been written to so many times that it's become read-only, and I've never met anybody in real life that's ever been able to show one to me. So it remains a Sasquatch. It's like somebody telling you to not go into the woods because Sasquatch will get you. What are you talking about, man? It's just nonsense from enthusiasts, and I hope you recognize truth from fear-mongering. Now, when people speak from experience, that'd be a different story, but the only experience they have is hearing it from somebody else, and without any evidence or experience, propagating that continuous false information. And while solid-state drives do have a limited number of writes, so does everything that you can write data to. Whether it's a flash drive, a mechanical hard drive, or a pen and paper, it has a limited number of times you can write on it, and it will fail, and it will also fail over time. So like everything in life, everything is temporary, but just how temporary has yet to be determined, because the technology hasn't been around long enough to establish that yet. Everything is theory, and in these theories, there's no evidence to back them up outside of extraordinary testing to cause a drive to intentionally fail. With that being said, if you want to cause a drive to fail, if you want to cause any technology to fail, you absolutely can force that through extreme abuse. But under normal usage, I believe 70 years is what's expected. But again, I'm just a computer tech with 30 years in the industry, and tens of thousands of computers have passed through my hands. I mean, if that means nothing to you, it doesn't matter to me. You know what I mean? Like, some people are just gonna see the world the way they want to see it, and I'm okay with it. Photomix Media wants to know if soundproofing material holds heat in. It does. So the downside of a soundproof case is you want to make sure that that case is designed with a very good airflow so you don't run into heat-related problems. And cases that are designed with soundproofing in mind, especially when they're from a reputable case manufacturer like Be Quiet, it's in their name. They're experts in that. If you buy a soundproof case from Be Quiet, it was designed for proper airflow while at the same time reducing noise. And then on top of that, they usually have optional panels, often at the top of the case, that you can remove for added airflow, but then of course it's not as soundproofed. And then of course there's passive coolers. Passive coolers also can cause your computer to overheat, but they're dead quiet. They have a 0 dB noise profile. In other words, they make no sound at all. So with every benefit, there is a consequence, and this is life. There's a downside to everything that has a good side. Every front has a back. Okay, so all the drivers are installed. Let me check the Intel driver updater one more time. Oh, I gotta use this mouse. We should be green down here. Should be a blue wrench with a green dot. Yeah, there it is. There's a blue wrench with a green dot. If I double click on that, and this is the part I wanted to get to, you don't need CPU-Z with this utility, because if we scroll down, We can see our BIOS version and date. We can see all the same information CPU-Z gave us. In addition to that, it tells us our processor. It tells us our graphics card, which again is integrated into the CPU. We scroll down, we get our display audio information. We have USB device information. We have wireless information. We have the Ethernet connection information. We have Bluetooth information. We have the RAM information, although it doesn't specifically tell us how many sockets. And of course, we have our storage information. If we want to see who makes that storage, a tool like Crystal Disk Info can display that. Or if you're a more technical person like me, you can just click on the yellow folder, go back to this PC, right-click on the C drive to Properties, and hit the Hardware tab. And here it will display typically information about the drive. If I double-click on it, sometimes you'll see information about the manufacturer within the driver or within the details of the drive. You have to know what to look for. In this case, I don't see anything other than a vendor ID. So a program like Crystal Disk Info could do that work for us, or it may come up where even Crystal Disk Info doesn't know, because it doesn't look like the manufacturer has filled in those fields in the firmware. But let's check it real quick. I'll pop my utilities flash drive back in. And again, with PC testing software, Crystal Disk Info. And you know what, let's grab Crystal Disk Mark and see what kind of performance we're getting out of this solid state drive. Although this is not a performance machine, that's not its MO here. But we can at least still get an idea of what kind of numbers to expect at this price range. Yeah, so we're not seeing a manufacturer. That's suspicious. What are you gonna do? All right, there you have it. The temperature looks okay there too. Let's go to Crystal Disk Mark and let's take a look at what our benchmarks are. These are all portable applications, meaning no installation is necessary. That way I don't have to uninstall things and dirty up the registry with technical tools that are no good to the customer and could later come back to haunt you in the future when there's a conflict or a registry problem a year from now with regards to something the customer has added. It appears the drive is SATA. It is not an NVMe drive, or we would see numbers at least 4 times that. So it appears to be a 512 gig SATA drive. I don't know that this would be SATA, I don't know that it would be NVMe compatible. And I don't know what's in there. I don't know if it's got an M.2 in there. It says it does according to the listing on Amazon. But based on how thick it is, it looks like you can add a 2.5-inch drive. You can usually tell by how thick the case is if you can add a 2.5-inch drive or not. When it's as tall as this one is, there often is a place for a 2.5-inch drive, but this could be here just for airflow. In the manual, they do show that this is a serviceable unit as far as changing a solid state drive or memory. And I'm going to show that to you while these tests are running. Let me go full screen here on camera 1. There I am. And I'll bring the manual up. Show you on screen what I see. Oh, they have a little video tutorial with a QR code right there. Of course, that would explain why the SATA cable was installed with the box. Duh, I forgot about that. So clearly it has room for a additional mechanical or solid state 2.5-inch SATA drive. So, like I said, the instruction manual has 9 different languages. So that right there automatically switches to the next language. That's on page 6. So the instructions are only 5 pages. So pretty generic information. The first page is just a thank you for buying our product. And then there's an index on the second page, and that only leaves 3 pages, of which I've already shown you 2. So that's all that's left. No, maybe not. It says page 1 starts here, so maybe those 2 pages don't count. No. Here we are. Right back to where we are. So that's pretty much all you get for information. You're at an aggressive price point. The savings comes from somewhere. Let me go back to putting myself in a corner here. Yeah, those are standard SATA speeds for a solid state drive. Excuse me, I am going to get a Gatorade here because throat is getting scratchy. That's better. And we'll move this out of the way. Make some room. Does anybody have any questions for me about this product? I haven't tried the fingerprint sensor. That's not really something I would use, but that certainly appears built in. And I imagine when you're setting up Windows, there's probably an option to, it's probably all built into Windows. It shouldn't be any third-party software from the manufacturer, thank goodness. Because otherwise, you know, stuff like that always has to be updated for security. Anything involving security is critical. And so that'll all be controlled through the Windows software. John wants to know if the solid-state drive fails, will the new Windows 11 OS activate automatically? Yes, no differently than Windows 10. When I install and activate Windows 10, whether that's on a pre-built PC or a PC I've built myself, as long as when I'm reinstalling, I haven't changed the motherboard, I choose I do not have a product key the way you see me do it all the time. And as long as I'm installing the same version of Windows, you know, if it's Home or Pro, you know, that I activated prior on the same hardware, I go to Windows Update after the install is completed. And after Windows Update, you'll see your computer reactivated automatically. Unless you're using the same code somewhere else, the last place you use that code is what it was tied to. In most cases, the code cannot be moved. But when you do move it, it can have consequences when you have to reinstall. So if you haven't done anything suspicious or fishy or tried to get away with something that you shouldn't be, the code will stay in Microsoft Activation servers based on the hash code that comes up of your unique hardware and serial numbers of that hardware. So no two are the same. And Microsoft keeps track of that automatically for your convenience and for their security to prevent piracy. As a result, you don't need to have a Microsoft account, although you can register your software through the Microsoft account, which would also be a way to reactivate potentially on other hardware if you have a retail Microsoft key. But you don't need to have a Microsoft account. It just automatically reactivates. Now, the days of reinstalling are pretty much over. Windows 10 introduced a way of resetting the Windows operating system without a reinstall. And so the people who do reinstalls now are either not up to par with modern technology and still doing things, in my opinion, in an old-fashioned way that no longer applies, or there's an extreme circumstance like a failed hard drive that had your operating system on it, leaves you little choice but to reinstall, or a severe virus infection, or a time issue where fixing the computer would take more time than reinstallation, potentially, and the decision is made to do the reinstallation for the sake of time. Regardless of your reasoning, for the most part, you should never have to reinstall except under a few bizarre circumstances. But if you choose to do it anyway, under the terms and conditions that I've already mentioned, you should have your expectations set accordingly that your activation will reactivate upon your first visit to Windows Update and restarting without entering any activation code again. And that's universal to laptops, desktops, custom builds, whatever. That's just a feature of Windows 10, which of course carries forward in Windows 11. Are there other questions for me? That was a good question. There's our final numbers on the solid state drive. Whoever makes it. But that's more than adequate for streaming 4K video for sure. More than adequate. And as a media center PC or a home theater PC, this is ideal. And of course, as an office workstation where your employees are handling emails and scheduling and things of that nature, a very small desktop footprint, doesn't take up a lot of room. And these usually have Kensington lock holes available in them, so you can tie them down to keep people from stealing them. I don't see one on here, but it may be because of this price point. Yeah. I don't really have any customers that use a steel cable to lock their computers in place. The companies are too small. That's typically done in corporate environments where you can have theft from your custodial staff that comes in after hours, or an employee who's quitting and takes their computer and sticks it in their backpack and leaves, stuff like that. You know, they can get through security. This does not have the Kensington lock. But again, I've never seen anybody actually use one. And I hope you don't work in an environment where you need one, because, as mentioned earlier, people are jerks. And, you know, because of the fact that so many people are jerks, that may be an important factor for somebody. Okay, so we'll close this out. And then I don't need any of these utilities, but I'll tell you what, I'll leave them on the desktop, because in 2 weeks I won't remember what this is, you know, the specifications of it. But yeah, if you have any other questions for me, please ask in the chat room now. John Williams says, Carey, thank you for the info. You're welcome, John. Thanks for participating with us here in the chat today. Let me go full screen back on camera one again here. Hey, there you are. You were this big before. I'll scroll up through the chat just to see if I missed anything here. We've got about 438 people watching right now. If you want to give me a shout out, let me know where in the world you are watching me from. It's always fun to see where everybody's coming from. There's Madi with a $10 contribution. Thank you, Madi. Joseph Winterhalter says hello. Welcome in, Joseph. Gary Jason says thank you for your videos. Thank you. Appreciate your kind words. Siegfried says he's watching us from Spain. Joseph Winterhalter is in Aurora, USA. John Williams joins us from Madison, Wisconsin. Dan Nilsson from Sweden. Al Hej Tepej is in Slovenia. Bob R is in Boston. Lou Greenia joins us from Vermont with Chris Johnson from New Mexico. Ken Masudik joins us from I don't know how to say it, Fond du Lac? Fondu. He's in Wisconsin. And Eddie Milne is in the UK. JK is in Australia. Ben Laird joins us from Scotland. Arnold Albert joins us from St. Lucia, and Patrick Manny is in Ohio. Dave Hall joins us from Bristol, Wisconsin, and Dave Herzog in Ohio as well. Stealth Mode joins us from St. Augustine, Florida, where it is sunny and beautiful. Well, Bill Binder says it's a rather chilly Scotland. Jim KJ3N joins us from Wilmington, Delaware, and Ada Rivera from Puerto Rico. Captain Ken also in Boston, and Vern Marney in Olathe, Kansas. John Peck says he's here from Hertz in the UK. And James Rasso from Lords Valley in Pennsylvania. Prop is in Oldham in the UK, and Aaron Computer Tech is in Wesley Chapel, Florida. Y. Davies is joining us from Wales in the UK, where it's currently 0 degrees Celsius. Oh, I hope to visit Wales someday. Phil Patterson joins us from Norway. Let's make sure that Phil is blue in the channel there. Welcome in, our viewers in Norway is pretty cool. Norway is such a relatively small place, population-wise. It's nice to have any viewers at all watching us from Norway or Finland or Sweden or Switzerland. Bradley Morris joins us from Illinois, and Tony Wallow in California. Spyros De Pontis joins us from Athens, Greece. Right on. Good to see you, my friend, all the way out in Greece. Rick Legs joins us from Minnesota. Ricky B is in Lancaster, California. Eddie Casanova is in Philadelphia. Rod Straub is in Mount Rushmore. Is that South Dakota? Is it North Dakota? Can't remember where Mount Rushmore is. Raj D joins us in Essex in the UK. Duncan, he said London is freezing the last couple of days, and we have snow forecasted. Ooh, wish I was there. I'd love to take some of that right now. Protiva 2 says greetings from Missouri, and Gil Garcia joins us from Fort Worth, and Zvi Manor joins us from Israel. Dom Long is in Gilbertsville, Pennsylvania. Hugh is in the UK. B.H. Ringer joins us from Nova Scotia, Canada, with Gary Selinsky in North Carolina, and John Lewis from Brazil. Wayne Pierce in Missouri City, Texas, and Peter VZ from the Netherlands, and Martin Postema also in the Netherlands, and Daco between Leicester and Peterborough in the UK. Ross Whitehead joins us from Garden Grove, California, and Dustin Fuller in Michigan, Paul Garrett in Australia, Bob Connors is in Alpena, Michigan. Rick Hubbard just contributed 5 pounds all the way from London, England. He says, this is my last, as I won't be alive this time next week. Goodbye and thanks, everyone. That's a bit extreme of a statement. Could you elaborate for us? Mark Leibowitz Mark Leibowitz says hello from Chicago, Illinois. Remember, it's Illinois, not Illinois. There's no noise in Illinois. Little tip from your Uncle Carey. Ted joins us from Scotland, and Mark Baggett from Massachusetts. Ian McGregor says hello from Newcastle in the UK. So I do like to give everybody a chance to be shouted out. It's pretty cool, I think, when I'm a viewer of a live broadcast and the host of the show mentions my name. Kind of makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. So I do go out of my way to try and mention as many of you as possible. And while that does make it very special for that individual, for everybody else, they roll their eyes and say, get on with it. And that's why these shows don't do well after they're live, because without participation, people don't get the enjoyment, right? And so for those of you who do participate, I do want to reward that, and I hope people that are just lurkers understand they're really missing out, and that's their choice, but everybody's always welcome to join us. We have plenty of room for more. We just want to make sure that people are respectful and kind to one another. That's all. It's a pretty low bar to join our community. Just don't be a jerk. But in a world full of jerks, what are you going to do? But we've got a wonderful community here, jerk-free, I'm proud to say. Rick Hubbard said he has terminal cancer and his kidneys are failing. Rick, you can't give up hope. And, to the best of my knowledge, we don't get to pick when we die. I hope that you stay in the fight. I really do. I hope you haven't given up. You're a cherished member here in the community. I always am happy when I see you in the chat room. I get warm fuzzies, when I see friendly names in the chat room. And you've been one of those for some time. And I would hate to not see you in the chat room anymore. I hope you will continue the good fight, if not for yourself, then for the people around you. If there are any final questions or concerns you have about this little mini PC, the link for it is in Amazon. It's in my video notes. It's a link for Amazon in my video notes. And it also is a link to the video from the folks at a YouTube channel I love called You Suck at Cooking, who recently did a video on hardware review. They don't do hardware reviews, but it's April Fool's Day, and so they are playing along in that spirit with a hardware review, in the spirit of their cooking videos. And the link for their video is in these video notes below this video. And if you're in for a nice laugh of a review of a MacBook M1 Pro, MacBook Pro M1, check that out, because it emphasizes and exaggerates the sarcasm with which I speak about the misperceived value that the enthusiasts and hobbyists place on things that don't really make a difference in the real world and don't improve your skills as a human being. A faster computer isn't going to make you type faster or make less typos. It's just silly things like that. I thought they did a great job, and I highly recommend you watch it if you'd like a nice chuckle. Ross Whitehead said he received that little liquid cooler, that Liquid Maker 92. He says, sorry for the mix-up. I'm glad you got it. All those coolers are gone now, so I don't have any way to, if people are asking, they're gone. And they weren't made anymore. They didn't work out as far as sales. There was anything wrong with them. It just didn't pick up in the market, and so Cooler Master moved on to other designs. I had them sitting on a shelf for about 2 or 3 years and thought a good way to get rid of them, rather than throw them away or send them to a recycler, they're new in a box and they still work, was to offer them to viewers in the community here in the United States. And it didn't take very long to get all 8 of them gone. So I'm glad that you guys have the benefit and the experience of utilizing it. The specifications, everything this unit has, are listed on Amazon. And indeed, it does have Wi-Fi. It's Wi-Fi 5, not Wi-Fi 6. These units, much like laptops or tablets or smartphones, don't have visible antennas. David Martinez says he had cancer 11 years ago. They gave him 90 days to live 11 years ago. I'm a survivor. Don't give up. Agreed. Well said, David, and thank you for sharing your story. Does it have a desktop CPU or a laptop CPU? There's no way you could fit a desktop motherboard or CPU in a case that small. If you look at the model of the CPU listed on Amazon and you Google that model, you'll see that those models that end in H's or U's from Intel are for portable devices. So they're what you would refer to as a laptop CPU. Yeah. Ryan said he had testicular cancer 9 years ago. Unfortunately, cancer is very common these days. I've lost my mother to it. I've had other family members have their battle with it, and they're winning that battle. But it will tire you out. It'll absolutely tire you out. And I think the key is to be stubborn and to fight back. And when people give up, that's usually when we lose them. And, you know, some people have been fighting a very long time. You know, some people are just like, they just want the fight to be over with. And I understand, you know, that you get weak, you know, you get so exhausted. But you don't have a choice. You know, you got to stay in the fight. I don't know that I can speak for anybody who's been through it, and I wouldn't dare, you know, attempt to imagine. I've been through it with family, and it's difficult, but you got to choose to fight. Bob Connors mentioned he doesn't know Rick, but he has seen him in the chat, and Bob says he's 76 years old, and he can tell you never give up. He said he's had many times where he was supposed to be dead, and I'm still here. You know, I've shared the story where I had my face-to-face with death, and that was a long time ago, but it was an interesting place to be. It's a very personal thing, but I hope that you think of others. And, you know, have a reason to fight and have a reason to find the strength. I hope. So we're thinking about you. And for everybody else battling disease, you know, keep up the fight. And you do what you can. You do everything you can. All right. Again, any last questions that people have on this computer here? Again, the link for purchasing it. The link defaults to the 256 gig version. This is the 512 gig version. Other than that, they look like they're fairly identical. I didn't really pay attention to the CPU difference. And thank you guys for hanging out with me today. And thank you for all the contributions. And Peter Laycock and Tony Wallow and Kelly Stewart and all of you. Thank you so much for your continued support and kindness. I will see you all again very, very soon. I hope you have a good April Fool's Day. I hope you're not falling victim to too many pranks. Be aware that's going on the internet. All over the internet today, manufacturers releasing false product statements and silly videos. So just be aware you're not being pranked, at least for the rest of today. I hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you all very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.